Here we live. Hey guys, welcome back to Critical African Thinkers. As you know, this is a place where we examine everything under the microscope of logic to ascertain what is most factual and logically consistent. So today I'm going to be reviewing the debate between Candace Owens and Mikhaila Peterson, the debate that they had on Piers Morgan show. They covered a whole lot of topics, and I've been meaning to cover this for a couple of days now. So I've gotten right to doing that. So let me just state my biases before this conversation begins. I would say of both people, who are going to have this debate or have this conversation. I like Michaela better than Candace Owens, and even though I like Michaela better than Candace Owens, I don't like her father, Jordan Peterson. I think he's one of the most terrible persons they can ever be. However, I think she is the one redeeming feature that he has, right? So I'll just share the screen and begin to react to it as we go. Yep.
The so-called MAGA civil war over visas for skilled workers has put some Trump supporters on an unusual collision course with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. The latter criticized US attitudes and work ethics, saying a culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. Well, this was Steve Bannon's response.
I've said many times that Elon came and Elon's money helped organize the grassroots effort. In his engineering mind, he saw what the problem was as we saw it, and he supported it.
Well, we've gone over this before. Elon did not see any problem. He saw an opportunity to grab power. He saw an opportunity to get himself closer to political power in the US. He quite literally bought himself a president. So he didn't see any problem. He saw an opportunity for himself, and he's always been doing things for himself. So just because he's aligned with you on this doesn't mean that he's with you, that your agenda and his agenda are the same things. Nah, that's not what's happening here. Elon is looking out for himself.
For that, he gets a place at the table. There's no doubt. We love converts, but the converts sit in the back and study for years and years and years to make sure you understand the faith and you understand the nuances of the faith and understand how you can internalize the faith. Don't come up and go to the pulpit in your first week here and start lecturing people about the way things are going to be. If you're going to do that, we're going to rip your face off.
Yeah, but the truth is, you quite literally put him on the pulpit. I mean, this guy was attending Trump rallies, despite the fact that he supported Trump quite late in the election cycle. He was having prime spots. So you put him on the pulpit, you know he's a convert who doesn't understand the MAGA faith or whatever the hell you want to call it. You give him that much power, you give him that much influence, that much access. So you can't be complaining now that he's saying things that are contrary to your quote unquote MAGA ideology. You made this happen. So you made your bed, you got to lie on it.
Wow. Well, it's not just a battle of the bros. Two influential voices on the right, Mikhaila Peterson and Candace Owens, traded barbs on this issue too. Peterson said, why did the woke right pretend it was illegal immigration they were against when it turned out it was immigration in general? At least be honest about it. There's assimilation into the culture, illegal immigration. What is the problem other than the skin color? To which Candace Owens replied, Jordan Peterson's daughter thinks the visa debate comes down to Americans being upset about immigrant skin color, lol, and the nerve to call the right woke as she makes it about race. 2025 is going to be so much fun. Well, indeed.
So from those two tweets, like I said, I have a bias for Mikhaila Peterson, even though I don't like her father. And I think that she has a point because prior, MAGA wasn't talking about legal immigration. In fact, they had said they supported legal immigration. They had said that people need to go through the process to become American citizens, right? What they were rallying against was illegal immigration, people coming in from the southern border. But immediately they got into power, they were like, shut everything down, shut down all types of immigration. And you've got to wonder, okay, so what exactly was the problem all along? Is this a bait and switch? Were you being sort of sensible or reasonable before you got power, and now that you've gotten power, you reveal your true colors. Because it did seem that the issue wasn't really illegal immigration; it was immigration in particular. It was the whole of immigration. They want to shut everyone from coming into the US. When the fact remains that the US is a country of immigrants, everybody or most people in that country are people who came from other places, whether it was 100 years ago, 200 years ago, whatever time, and this is in recent modern history. So, I don't know.
Indeed it is.
And Candace Owens thinking, oh, you can't make this about race. Yeah, it's not fashionable to make things about race. However, when things are having the appearance of it being racial, it is what it is. Just because it's uncomfortable to say something is about race doesn't mean you can't say it when it clearly is. Just like people are saying, oh, the salute that Elon Musk gave was not a Nazi salute, that it was just an awkward gesture. But my eyes, I have to believe my eyes. My eyes are not deceiving me when I saw that, and he did it twice. So we can have an argument as to what his intent was, but that clearly was a Nazi salute. His intent might be, he might have done it out of, I don't know, whatever the hell is going on in his mind, his wretched mind. I don't know what is going on in his mind, but that is what it is. So just because someone mentions race doesn't invalidate the point they're trying to make. If Candace was smart, she would have an argument aside from just saying, oh, you're making this about race, or you're playing the right race card, and so on and so forth. No.
Because I'm now going to bring these two together. Candace Owens, host of the Candace podcast, and Mikhaila Peterson, co-founder of Peterson Academy, both join me now. Welcome to both of you. Happy New Year to both of you. And Candace, you said it's going to be fun this year. Here we go. What was your big objection to what Mikhaila said?
Well, first and foremost, just to be someone that's so new in this country and then to immediately castigate or to cast aside everybody that's in here and say, well, guess what? You're just a bunch of racists. You don't like brown skin, while at the same time referring to us as woke, was just mind-boggling to me. Just as Steve Bannon said, it means that she hasn't spent the time to understand who and what the American people are, what the MAGA movement is, and why they have concerns about this program. And so to make sure that everybody around the world understands why this is such a big debate, the H-1B visa program is essentially a foreign worker visa that allows employers to hire workers into quote unquote specialty programs, essentially for people who have some sort of a specialized knowledge. But to be clear, the program has been around since 1990, so the results aren't up for debate. We were just simply lied to about what we were told it was going to do, which was to source the top 1% of talent globally. Instead, they're using the program to source cashiers, teachers, janitors, PR people. So I'm going to have to believe that the American people are very much capable and willing to fulfill those positions, and that instead this program has been completely abused to get foreign workers here who then have a pathway to citizenship, and it lowers worker wages, and it's harming the American people. So I am not fond of it.
So in summary, what Candace Owens is saying is capitalism is screwing US citizens, because that's exactly what's happening. It's the capitalist, the businessman sitting down. I'm looking at a program that was designed to do a specific thing and saying, how can I take advantage of this to make more profit for myself? I mean, American workers be damned. I'm going to bring in cheap labor from other parts of the world under this program, and I'm going to enrich myself. And you guys are the ones always championing capitalism, the free market. Well, this is the free market at play, right? If you don't like the wages that these companies are offering, don't work for them. They're going to find someone from India who is going to take that wage. What were you expecting? So you think capitalism only affects, you think it has no ill effects. This is an example of the free market working, and you can't blame them. Just like Trump will say something like, it detests the H-1B visa program, but he uses it because, he's a businessman. Just like he would say that he doesn't like the tax code, but he uses it because he's a businessman. So what the hell do you think these companies are going to do? Not take advantage of this opportunity? America is literally a capitalist country. You should be happy. This is what capitalism is for. Shareholders' profit. Now you care about American workers. Why?
And I'll add here that prior to his passing.
And besides, this idea, I know I had this conversation in my last live stream when I was talking with Adam B. Coleman about the idea how something like this clearly does away with the idea of meritocracy, because it is very, very clear that these people that these companies are bringing in might not necessarily be the best, or being the best isn't really the first criteria or the most important criteria. The most important criteria they are looking at here are wages. Can these people accept lower wages? Of course, they're competent enough to do the job. But when you talk about the absolute best, as these people are want to say, when Black people were complaining that they were being shortchanged in the job market, we're saying, oh, it's because you're not the absolute best. America is a meritocracy. So since 1990, you're just now realizing that that idea of meritocracy is a myth. Because if it is not a myth, then you shouldn't have any problem. It means that those that are being hired by this company are the absolute best. You shouldn't have any problem with that. If the meritocracy isn't a myth, then maybe more Americans, like you say, who can do this job would be getting this job. So which is it? Is it a myth, or is it what's obtainable in America?
Lou Dobbs of Fox News looked into the program, and he determined that 7 out of the 10 H-1B positions were being outsourced from Indian corporations to American corporations. So it's not globally looking at the 1%. And 5 of those 7 positions were category 1, which essentially just means that they didn't require any specialized knowledge. These are the janitors, these are the teachers, and they are just taking jobs away from the American people. So I just found her referring to this as an issue with being brown, or Americans having an issue with brown people, to be almost comical, to be honest. And I'd love to hear her further explain that position.
Okay.
But it isn't comical when you hear the comments of these right-wingers on Twitter. When you hear their commentary, you would see that there is a racial angle to it. There is a bigoted angle to it. It's very clear. Why do you want people to ignore facts just to fit this your race-neutral narrative? Facts don't care about your feelings. So however you want it to be a race-neutral issue, if it is a race issue, if it's quote and unquote a racially tainted issue, it is. It doesn't matter whether I don't like things to be racialized. I don't like it, but it is what it is.
Okay. Well, we're now going to hear it. Mikhaila, over to you.
So I don't know, Candace, if you're seeing what I'm seeing on X, but when I saw the H-1B debate going around, mostly what I saw was racism against Indians specifically. And I'm not saying there isn't a problem with the visa issue in the States in general. Getting top talent here is very difficult. Like, I had a very difficult time getting in, and I'm married to an American, and it was long and annoying, and they don't have a proper way to test people. So there's plenty of flaws to talk about. But I think right before the inauguration, having conservatives argue amongst ourselves about an H-1B visa issue when we have an open border is silly, especially when it does kind of dredge up what I called the woke right on X. And I know you've scoffed at the term the woke right, but it encompasses these people that are focused on anti-Semitism, Jews, and they're pro-America, but their idea of America is this white America, similar to, I guess, what everyone's been arguing about for the last 200 years whenever anybody new comes into the country. And I do think it has to do with race. And I think you can see that from comments on Twitter. I mean, Vivek put up a picture. I don't know if you saw it. It wasn't Vivek. It was this horrible woman on Twitter. What's her name? Something Lupus. She's a doctor. She goes, oh, what do you guys think about this? Thoughts? And it's a picture of Vivek and his brown family. And one of the most interacted with comments was subversive brown poop eating parasites. And that's what flooded my feed. And I think I had some irritation because I'm, aligning with conservatives because the woke left has been a disaster.
No. Before you go further, Mikhaila, she's made a couple of points, of which Candace Owens is very clearly going to say, nothing here to see, nothing here to see. Oh, she's going to make the excuse that this is just 1 or 2 or 3 people on Twitter being their usual selves. But that's clearly not the case. Many people we're just attacking Indians. We're just attacking Indians. It clearly took a racial bent to it. So I really don't know what Candace would be arguing against what Mikhaila has said in this conversation. I really don't see that.
Faster for America and for Canada and for the West for
And besides-
years, and it's just frustrating.
Besides, Nick Fuentes said recently that he really doesn't care about grocery prices, the price, that he just doesn't want America to become India. He doesn't want America to become as brown as India. And I think that's the sentiment that a lot of these types who are rallying against this H-1B visa program, I think that's what they have in their minds. They're seeing that this is the path for Indians to come into America, and they don't like it.
Frustrating to see them go at each other over something like an H-1B when there are bigger issues like an open border. And I think people are misunderstanding the H-1B, although it does have its issues as well. There's also the H-2B, which nobody knows about, and that's for people who are paid lower. The average rate, the average wage for an H-1B visa is $118K. So there was all this talk on Twitter about how these people are underpaid and everything. $118K is pretty good. You know, companies, I don't think most companies, especially tech companies, are hiring H-1Bs to become more successful, to make more money. You're not making more money by getting H-1B visas in. You're making more money by having a successful company, by hiring top talent. So I don't think we're completely.
So you know what? I'm going to have to trust the companies here over Candace Owens. These companies are in for business. These companies want to make money. And these companies are going to hire people who they think or they feel are competent enough for a price they feel they can afford. So it's a good deal for the company. Candace Owens should be happy about this. She's a capitalist after all. I'm a capitalist too. So you know what? She should be happy about this. I don't see why she's rallying against this. This is business, purely business. And if these people are no good, then these companies would not be hiring them because they would not be effective at their job. They will not be making money or making profit for the businesses. So for the fact that the businesses are still using them, yeah.
Not aligned entirely, because I agree the visa process in America is ridiculous. And it doesn't test people, like I said, properly. But I think it's silly to fracture the Conservative Party by arguing about 85,000 H-1B visas when we have an open border. And I don't like the racism.
Okay. Candace,
You don't like the racism. Oh, wrong party. You're in the wrong party. Sorry. That's so hilarious. You don't like the racism. Okay. You got to find another party.
I mean, do you see common ground there in what you just heard from Mikhaila? And what do you also feel about the fact that for Steve Bannon and the diehard MAGA group, they look at this as a betrayal when they see Vivek and Elon and now Trump as well, all piling in, enthusiastically supporting this? They say, well, hang on, that's not about making America great again. They're not buying into, we need to get all these brilliant people coming here. They think it's a system that's being abused, and it goes against the spirit of MAGA. So you're seeing a real interesting debate raging about the heart of what MAGA really means.
What exactly is Make America Great Again? Is the greatness about the people specifically, or what the country is able to achieve? If those people from India come to America and they become citizens, aren't they Americans? And if they're contributing to the American economy, to the country, and they're making the country great, what's the problem there? Except you mean Make America Great Again means Make America White Again. Because that's the only reason why you should be having issues with high-performing people. I mean, I don't think that those Indians coming over there, that they're not smart or they're not contributing to the American economy. So if they are contributing, aren't they making America great? I mean, many of those startup companies, aren't they being formed by immigrants? If you look at the CEOs of many of these tech companies, they're actually Indians, Chinese, right? They are contributing to America. They're making America great again, and you're against it. Which brings me to the point that it's not about making America great again. It's making America white again.
I think Steve Bannon fully has his finger on the pulse there, so he's completely right. And just to respond to the point about
Yeah,
seeing
he's completely right in doing the very Christian thing of ripping someone's face off. Yeah.
racist comments on Twitter. I've heard this argument a lot of times from people where they'll suddenly pretend that if you take a position of something and they can find a racist comment beneath it, then you're on the side of the racist.
That's not what I'm doing.
That's just called I'm just saying that literally since the day that I started my accounts on Instagram, I've been called the N-word from left and the right. It's just welcome to the internet. Doesn't mean that these are the positions that are represented. In fact, this conversation that we're having is something that I would almost refer to as MAGA 101. This is like a freshman year class in MAGA college.
Yeah. So MAGA teaches minorities and Black people to accept racism as normal, to accept bigotry as normal. That's MAGA 101. You just have to accept it. It's a fact of life. Just like Vivek was saying, where are these white supremacists, these mythical white supremacists or racists? He's never seen them. And then Ann Coulter said some racist shit straight to his face, and he went on Twitter to be complaining and all that. And I think there have been other incidents after that where he's got to complain. Now, when it affects you personally, you get to complain, but you've excused this because the MAGA rhetoric wants you to ignore racism.
I've been hearing this debate, have spoken about this debate on stage. I mean, I've spoken at more than 100 universities. And to be frank with you, because I came over from the left, when I first got into this movement, I thought the same thing. I thought, okay, well, I don't understand what the issue is if it's legal migration. But I then listened to people and I wanted to understand where people were coming from. And I opened my mind to what they were saying and realized that they were very much correct. And I think that's sort of where you get into trouble with the MAGA movement, when you just instantly.
So what exactly were they correct about? I haven't seen her outline anything specifically. She's speaking in so much generality. So you realize that they were right. Okay. Can you explain what they were right about? How were they right about it?
Sweep away and condemn everyone and say, well, some people were saying racist stuff about Indians, and so this entire argument now is based on racism. It simply isn't. Vivek, I personally stumped for Vivek. So if you think that I'm going to be on board with people being racist for him, when I went on the ground with him all throughout Iowa when he was running for president, of course, I'm also brown myself. But I understand that this has nothing to do with the merits of the arguments that are being presented here.
No, Candace, you're white. You've forgotten.
And it is just a fact that the H-1B visa, the majority of the people that are coming into this country are not coming in with any extraordinary skills. They're not coming in because they're a part of the 1%. It is being completely abused and jobs are being taken away from the American people. Now, Piers, to your point about the MAGA rift, I'm glad to see it. I very much agree with Steve Bannon. I mean, the last estimate that was done, by the way.
You know what? I'm just going to be snidey and say, if jobs are being taken away from the American people, maybe they should work harder. Yeah. Maybe what they need to do is work harder. Maybe if they prove themselves to be much more competent. I mean, we're not going to forget that line that's always been used: competence, meritocracy. If they are the absolute best, that's the silly criteria that right wingers usually invoke. Oh, this person it has to be the absolute best. You know what? If those Americans who are being shortchanged are the absolute best, these companies would have no choice but to hire them. But you see, this is the contradiction. You see, this is the nonsense with right-wing narratives, because it is very inconsistent, and they only invoke they invoke certain arguments when it favors them. If Candace Owens was talking to a Black person who is complaining about not being able to get jobs because of discrimination for whatever reason, it might not even be due to race, it might be for some factors, Candace might likely tell that person that they need to work harder. They need to prove themselves. They need to be competent. So which is it? Why doesn't that narrative work now? Now Candace is seeing that competence is not the only reason why people are hired for jobs or propositions. Many of these Indian companies bringing in people, you think they don't know what they're doing. You think they're not deliberately hiring other Indians because these are Indian firms. You'd think they don't know that there are some competent or there are competent people in America to do these jobs. And this is This has always been how people get jobs. It's not always about meritocracy. Of course, the person has to be competent enough to do the job to a certain extent. If not, they'd be useless. But competence is just one of the metrics. It's not in fact, it might not always be the most important metric. Now, these companies are bringing them in because one, we need to bring more of our people in, Indians. Two, they're looking at, maybe we get to pay these people lesser and they get to work longer hours than Americans would. It's a win-win for them, for the companies. So why wouldn't they do it? That's the nature of capitalism. But you just want to think everything is ones and zeros, but it's not true. There are so many factors.
Way, and this speaks to Mikhaila, you saying it's just 85,000 people that are allowed annually. Well, the last estimate that was done in 2019 approximated that 600,000 foreign nationals were here on this visa program, all of them being provided with a pathway to citizenship that doesn't include in 2 years. You can then get out of that program and become a permanent resident. Okay, so that they're allowed to stay in this country from up to 6 years. They don't apply for permanent residency. Of course, we can assume that the majority of them do. And they're allowed to stay up to 10 years if they go to work for the Department of Defense. Again, all of these applicants have a pathway to citizenship. So you just imagine you're like, yeah, I just went to work in America as a teacher for a couple of years and I became a citizen, or as a janitor for a couple of years and I became a citizen. It's not okay. And I want to be clear, all across the board, it's not just the H-1B. There's a ton of visa programs that are being routinely abused. And like I said, I have faith in the American people. I think that the American people can fulfill those positions. I know they can fulfill those positions. And so I am not on the side of Elon Musk and Trump in this debate. And I think that, Elon Musk has been at Mar-a-Lago for a bit too long and thinks that that is the sample of what MAGA is, and it simply isn't. Steve Bannon has been on the ground and spoken to those people for years. He understands what they're saying. And it would be gracious for Elon Musk to kind of step down and recognize that he's simply wrong in this debate.
Well, it's interesting.
Okay, now you're going to be in for a rude shock, because guess who committed millions of dollars to Trump's re-election? That person isn't Candace Owens. That person isn't Steve Bannon. That person is Elon Musk. And in the US, money talks. I mean, as annoying as Musk has been, even Trump has made comments about him being like a leech. Yet he's still somehow around Trump. It's still relevant in Trump's administration. In fact, Trump has sort of kicked out Vivek for the Doge, and it's now a strictly Elon show. So, you know what? He isn't going to realize anything because he's put in the money and he's going to be there. The people that are likely not going to be there are yourself and Steve Bannon.
You actually posted to me on X, of course, owned by Elon Musk. You said, we'll have to get together in the new year so you can let me finish what I was going to say about Elon Musk. A lot has happened since I didn't finish that sentence. Exciting dialogue awaits. And we did leave people on a slight cliffhanger about Elon Musk. So now's your chance to finish that sentence, and I'll get Mikhaila to respond. But I mean, Musk he's everywhere right now, literally poking his head into every country, it seems, in the world, particularly my country, where he's just in the last 2 days, he's called for the king to dissolve parliament, which he can't actually do. Mm-hmm. He's called for Sir Keir Starmer, the prime minister, to be imprisoned. He's hammered a previous prime minister, Gordon Brown. He's called another senior member of the cabinet here, an evil woman, Jess Phillips, who's been waging a rape genocide apology tour, I think is how he put it. I mean, this is inflammatory, incendiary stuff. What do you think his game plan is here?
I mean, isn't it obvious? If he could buy himself a president in the US, then what's Germany and the UK? Those would be like a walk in the park, piece of cake. He quite literally bought himself a president. So now he thinks he's superhuman. He has this inflated sense of self and ego. That's why why the hell is Elon Musk putting his mouth in German politics, UK politics, politics in other parts of the world? Why the hell is he even putting his mouth in American politics? It makes no sense. But because he has the money, because he has the wealth, that's why he's able to do all this. So he thinks now that he's been able to achieve what he wants in America, he could replicate something similar in other parts of the world. That's his game plan. Power. He wants to become emperor of the US and then emperor of the world and then emperor of Mars. I can't wait for him to go to Mars. Really can't wait for him. You see, I am praying that Starship becomes a success, because you know who's not going to be going on Starship? Regular people. You know who's going to be going? All the psychopathic billionaires. We do need them to leave Earth. Like, just go to Mars. Don't come back. Go to Mars.
Well, that was what I was going to say to you. And for people that haven't watched it, we were able to sit down and speak about a variety of issues, but we did disagree on Elon Musk. You said that he was a superhero, and I didn't say that he hadn't done superheroic things. You know, I thought that he was going to rescue speech on X. Even that's up for debate now, given the H-1B visa debate. But I was never keen on him essentially buying.
Wait, Candace. So it was the H-1B debate that made you question Elon Musk's commitment to free speech. You see what I'm saying? When Musk was banning journalists, yeah, Candace had no issues with that. When Musk was throttling people who disagreed with him, nah, Candace she had no issues with that. There were no issues on free speech. But now that he's opposing MAGA, now she realizes that this guy might not be so much of free. You see the contradictions, you see the hypocrisy. No standards. It's only when it affects them, that's when they begin to say that Elon Musk is not such a nice person. Crazy.
A seat at the table, which is what he's done, because we don't know what Elon Musk believes. You know, I am a Christian conservative. Elon Musk, of course.
You know what he believes? He believes in power, he believes in money, he believes in influence. You're a Christian? I'm not really saying that, Candace. You're a conservative. The Christian part is very debatable.
Is going to be at odds with me and my beliefs, because he wants to put brain chips in people's minds. He wants to go to Mars. You know, these things conflict with me theologically. You know, I think he's a transhumanist. What are his perspectives on marriage? He's had how many different women? I think he has up to 13 different children. What is Elon Musk's endgame? And we have not seen people interview him fairly. They're either incredibly hostile to him, like you saw with Don Lemon, or they're too friendly to him, and which they just see him as a superhero. And I would actually like to see someone sit down and flesh out what Elon Musk actually believes.
Candace shouldn't be the one talking about interviewing someone in a balanced manner. You had the chance to do that with Andrew Tate, and you basically licked his balls. So, yeah, you threw softball at him. You made excuses for him. So please, Candace, please.
What is his goal? What is he trying to contribute? Because I don't think you can say that you are a conservative if you are not ultimately trying to conserve the nuclear family unit. And I don't think that he's trying to do any of those things. And so we're now seeing.
Whenever did Musk say he's a conservative? He never said any of that. And I don't think he is.
Seeing that, okay, maybe this is about AI for him. Maybe this is about data collection for him. Maybe this is about him wanting to be the first person and getting a leg into federal governments so that he can do things that are on a larger scale in terms of artificial intelligence. I don't know the answer to that. And not knowing the answer to that made me uncomfortable when people did what we always speak against, which is essentially turn him into a celebrity, that worship him like he's Taylor Swift, and think that because he's got tons of money and bought X, that he's now suddenly allowed to direct us on politics. I just am not into celebrity worship culture.
Nah, that ship has sailed. That ship sailed when he committed millions of dollars to Trump's re-election, which he didn't say anything that time. So, yeah, you can't be saying that now.
Interestingly, Elon Musk began following you on X just 3 days ago. And that happened after you complained that you thought YouTube was trying to shadow ban your father Jordan's interview with Tommy Robinson, very controversial figure over here in the UK. What did you think when Elon began following you?
I mean, I'm an Elon fan. So
now you've got to ruin the good thing that we had going. We had a good thing going, Mikhaila. Now you've ruined it. You like Elon? Oh, now. So now I'm going to be on Candace's side. You like Elon? I mean, no reasonable person should like that person. No reasonable person. So, nah, Candace is right. You're wrong.
For a moment. And I'm not a fan of celebrity culture, like Candace said either. I don't usually follow that stuff, but I appreciate what Elon's doing. And I think it's totally fair if you're trying to give the world internet and doing what he's doing for the better of civilization, which I totally believe. that he has a seat at the table. He's also brilliant.
Elon isn't doing anything for humanity. Elon is living his fantasies. Elon is basically a child who has so much money that he wants to bring his fantasies to life. And if humanity benefits as a side effect of that, they do. But his primary motivation isn't to make life better for anyone. I mean, I can see that. I mean, what's the point of having money if you can't do crazy shit like Elon is doing? What's the point of having money? Live your fantasies. That's exactly what he's doing. But to frame it like he's doing it, there's this altruism to it. Nah, makes no sense.
So maybe some people don't understand what they're doing, but maybe it's an IQ difference thing.
Well, okay. I mean, look, I think he's
shots fired, shots fired, shots fired, shots fired. Who has the low IQ in this?
Genius, no question. But I also think he does seem to amplify to his own gigantic audience. I mean, I don't know how many gazillion followers he now has, but well over 150 million, I think, too.
Sahari says, I flipped sides because I don't like what you clearly are not getting how that I'm being sarcastic right now. Okay. It's all right. It's not for everyone.
I think it's 200 million. He amplifies all sorts of random people, some of whom are utterly appalling. The worst kind of horrible, extreme right-wing headbangers, and he's giving them this massive platform to spew often complete nonsense. Now, underpinning it, I think he's well-intentioned in that if you take the rape scandal in the UK, for example, he's not wrong that it was a disgraceful scandal. There was an appalling cover-up, and there should be a big national inquiry. But when he calls for the king to dissolve parliament, which he can't actually do, when he calls for the prime minister to be jailed, all these kind of things, when he really personally abuses in the most awful way Jess Phillips, who's a female MP, when we've had 2 members of parliament in the UK murdered in the last 10 years, and he's basically putting a massive target on our head for random headbangers to, go after this, as he put it, genocidal rape apologist. I mean, you couldn't think of a worse thing to say about a woman who's actually campaigned a lot in this area for many years. So I think there is a danger with Elon doesn't quite perhaps comprehend his own power on his own platform. So
the thing that's Morgan isn't comprehending here is that you don't have to tap dance to Elon Musk before you say something critical about him. You don't have to say, oh, he's right about. No, he wasn't right about the grooming gang scandal, because those things were actually covered by the mainstream media. So people who don't follow the mainstream media will complain that the mainstream media isn't covering something that he's covering. And then him making it racial. Oh, it's Pakistani gangs that are raping white women. Like those so-called Muslim gangs or whatever are not doing the same thing to other ethnicities. They're just specifically targeting white women. It's crazy. So even if you wanted to bring attention to something like that, the framing of Muslim, Pakistani, or Muslim, whatever gang doing this to white women, you get what I'm saying? Yeah.
I mean, that's probably true. I think anybody at his level is going to be impossible to comprehend what kind of power you have. Having any type of social media following, it's shocking when people agree with you. So that's definitely true. I don't know enough about Jess Phillips, but after reading what happened to, apparently at least 250,000 girls in the UK.
Well, we don't know how many. I mean, that figure I think is being plucked out of thin air, really. I mean, what we do know.
But then some people have said more, right? And some people have said less. It's still an alarming.
What we can agree on is that thousands of young girls, very young, mainly underage girls, were systematically raped and abused and drugged and fed alcohol and treated like underage prostitutes by predominantly British Pakistani men in the north of England in up to 50 towns and villages. That is a horrendous scandal, and there was an equally horrendous cover-up from the bottom right to the top of local council authorities and councillors to police who are supposed to be doing their job investigating it, to government at all levels. So all of that is true. And it's been a scandal. It's not true that mainstream media ignored it. In fact, it was exposed originally by the Times in the UK.
Aha! So even Piers is admitting mainstream media did not ignore this. But what's the narrative? Oh, mainstream media is covering this up. Nobody's doing anything about it. But the press literally exposed what the hell was going on. So what's Elon's point?
One of the big selling national daily newspapers. They ran a campaign for many years. They started it. They had a whistleblower who'd been one of the victims. It's not true that Tommy Robinson exposed this in the way he tries to pretend. And I'm also not sure that people in America fully understand who Tommy Robinson is or what his record is. I mean, this is a guy who's been to prison 3 times now. He was convicted for attacking a police officer, convicted of, as we now know, contempt of court. He nearly wrecked 2.
But those are the kinds of people that MAGA likes. I mean, Trump just freed a bunch of them that attacked police officers on January 6th. Yeah, so comrades in arms. Yeah, comrades at heart. So yeah, I'd see why they'd like a man like that with such criminal history. Yeah, birds of a feather, they say, flock together.
The cases involving the rape, the rapists, 2 of their cases have collapsed because he was outside court saying defamatory things. He's been convicted of mortgage fraud, convicted of using a fake passport to get into the United States to avoid them discovering his criminal record.
What an upstanding guy. What an upstanding citizen. Why would anyone not like this Tommy guy? Why would anyone not like him? I mean, he's checked all the MAGA boxes. He's checked everything.
He was a leader of a football hooligan gang in Britain, committing endless acts of violence.
Oh, he's even a gang and he's complaining about gangs. The irony.
This guy is not, I think, the hero that you really want to choose your hill to die on publicly supporting. And yet many Americans are doing that, which I find quite concerning. I would have thought it should at least.
I did.
Well, it should at least make Americans stop when they see that. And I know you're not American, you're Canadian, but if you take someone like Nigel Farage, who runs the Reform Party in the UK, the fact that he won't have anything to do with Tommy Robinson ought to ring alarm bells to the right in America. I
really don't understand what the hell is going on. Is this a debate now between Piers and Mikhaila? Because they're just ignoring Candace at this point. I mean, after Mikhaila said something about some people's IQs.
Yeah, I mean, that's all fair. And as soon as I posted something that said free, it said something like free Tommy right now, right? And that gained a lot of support. And I had a number of people reach out and explain all that to me. But I don't think somebody like Tommy would have risen to where he's at now and gained the amount of support he had if there hadn't been so much corruption in the UK covering this all up.
Well, I think that may be true.
Because maybe he like I think that
may be true. And I also think on that point, just to jump in, I also think not only is that undeniably true, but also he has been deliberately amplified as the kind of bogeyman by the other side because they know he's so flawed and so damaged. And
is he being amplified as a boogeyman? You just read out his rap shit. That guy is a boogeyman. He's not being amplified as anything. They're seeing exactly what he is. And why is that a problem? Why is that an issue? I mean, he's calling out something he thinks is an issue. People have a right to call him out on his own issues as well. Fair game.
And so in many ways lacking credibility because of his extensive criminal record and so on. They're quite happy for him to be the front man having a go at them because they think it gives them a bit of a pass. I think that can also be true.
Yeah, agreed. As for Elon getting involved in it, I think that's probably a reaction because there's been so much jumping up and down about Islamophobia for the last 10-ish years that if people in the UK, especially in the government and police officers, were actually scared to talk about what was going on for fear of being deemed Islamophobic, that's a huge problem. If we can't discuss
essentially people in the UK having no courage to combat something as detestable as grooming gangs because they are afraid of being called Islamophobic. Yeah, so the British people probably need some courage, because why? Being Muslim shouldn't be a shield for anything, just like being anything else shouldn't be a shield for anything. It's crazy. And this might just be a narrative. This might just be a narrative to excuse that certain people haven't done their jobs, and they're just putting this under, oh, we're afraid to be called Islamophobic. That's why someone has committed a crime. You're supposed to apprehend them, you're supposed to prosecute them. You're supposed to do what you're supposed to do to them, and you're not doing it because you're afraid of being called Islamophobic.
That's child rape, because we're worried about being called racist. Like, I understand where Candace is coming from, saying don't throw the racist term around. I do get that, and it's a slippery slope. I completely understand that. But I think what happened and what's going on in the UK is so egregious and so awful. Like, I can't think of a lot worse than finding out.
But I've got to ask, aren't any of these people arrested? Haven't they been arrested? Haven't they been prosecuted? I mean, if we go into the records, are they just having a pass because they are Muslim Pakistani? Are they not being prosecuted because they're Muslim Pakistani? Because it's very easy for narratives to be created around things like this, to say nothing is being done because people are afraid of being called. I really doubt that the British police or the British justice system, they are going to let something as egregious as this, they're just going to let it pass by because they're afraid of being called racist. It makes no sense.
Out about something like this, especially given it's been going on for so long, and especially given people haven't been talking about it because of the fear of being called Islamophobic. I can't think of anything worse. So I can see why Elon's freaking out.
I mean, I agree with you, and I listen. I've discussed with Candace before this very lazy trait people have of apportioning that kind of label to anybody for absolutely anything to shut down debate. I've got to say, in the case of Tommy Robinson, I think he's an unashamed Islamophobe. I mean, this is the guy who, when I interviewed him, one time I interviewed him, started waving the Quran around and just openly abusing everything about Islam. And to me, that is the definition of an Islamophobic person. So it doesn't mean there aren't people who aren't racist or Islamophobes or sexist or transphobes or any of those things.
Piers being reasonable. Who could have thought?
Doesn't mean there aren't any. Yeah, but it just means you have to be careful about how you throw that kind of accusation around, and that your primary motivation is not to shut down debate. I think Tommy Robinson was right to continue to highlight the scandal of the rape gangs, but he didn't expose it. And I also think there's a big self-interest with him in spewing deliberate lies about the Muslim community and constantly attacking Islam because it makes him money. And I'm very cynical.
This is the first time Piers must have been saying anything about Muslims without saying, do you condemn Hamas?
About that. And I think that can also be true.
I would also,
Candace.
Yeah, I also want to add here, just just regarding Elon Musk shifting gears and even speaking about that issue, you are correct. Obviously, I follow UK politics to some degree because of who I'm married to. And I will tell you that it very much seemed to me like he was drudging up this issue because he was getting so much backlash on the H-1B visa. So I don't really know how sincere Elon Musk was when he weighed into that issue at all. Suddenly,
no one's not.
Do you mind if I finish my sentence, Mikhaila? You've just been talking for a long time. Do you mind if I? There's not a time. There's not a time. Do you mind if I finish my sentence?
It's hard to address them all.
Do you mind if I finish my sentence? I feel like
That's Candace Owens' mode of operation. Half truths. If you just bring something that seems reasonable and fill it with a lot of BS and try to feed, she'll wrap BS around a little kernel of truth and try to force feed you. That's what she's doing. So she's essentially saying Elon Musk brought that up to detract from the H-1B controversy. Come on.
I've let you speak.
I'm in a bit, but go ahead.
Everyone's speaking.
Go ahead.
You mind letting me finish my sentence?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mikhaila. So what I was just going to say is it seemed very much to us that he was just trying to shift gears because basically he was trending for almost 2 weeks over the H-1B visa, and he was doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down. And then suddenly he's just advising on UK politics. And like you said, this issue has been going on forever. It was extensively covered by the mainstream media. It was not brought up by Tommy Robinson. We can have a discussion about what's going on in the UK. That's great. I'm glad that he has spotlighted the issue. But you are correct that most Americans are not up to date on what's happening there. So it did seem like a random shift. And Mikhaila, I do have to say, you say that you're not into celebrity culture, but the way that you respond regarding Elon Musk is very much like a Swiftie. I mean, you haven't even heard what I have to say. You're defending everything he says and does to the point that all you do is issue ad hominem attacks. I mean,
No, she wasn't defending him. She was saying that the argument made no sense, and it did make no sense. Maybe it's the IQ thing, you know.
Your first response back when we were speaking about Elon Musk is, well, it must be an IQ thing if people don't understand him. You keep just calling people stupid. People are racist. No, people are having a different opinion than Elon Musk. And you don't have to have a higher IQ than Elon Musk to have a different opinion from him. Quite frankly, I don't think he is the most socially sharp person in the entire world. He's not.
And Candace, you are not the sharpest tool in the box either. So
incredible things. We can definitely say that he is a genius.
Just because you talk fast and talk confidently doesn't mean you're sharp, doesn't mean what you're saying makes sense.
It does not make him right on issues of immigration spanning from here to the UK. It's ridiculous. I mean, he's not a king.
Mikhaila?
I think saying that Elon is upset about child rape because a bunch of people he doesn't really care about
That's not what I said.
were flapping about the H-1B visa is ridiculous. And I think it's funny that you mentioned ad hominem attacks after you released a 26-minute video detailing my dad's benzo withdrawal and allergic reactions.
Team Candace, anyone that takes a shot at Jordan Peterson is my person. So moving on to Team Candace again. You did a 26-minute video on Jordan Peterson, critical of Jordan Peterson. Go girl, that's my girl. I'd like to see that video, right?
It's out on YouTube. It's just funny, like you're going after me for ad hominem.
Well, actually, look, now you mentioned that, I was going to bring that. Oh, well, hang on. I was going to bring that up. For those who don't know what you're talking about, let's play a little clip from that.
Oh, I didn't sleep that month. I didn't sleep for 25 days. I didn't sleep at all.
I think Jordan Peterson is in my chat right now. Kermit the Frog. This guy is, you know, between Elon Musk, Jordan Peterson, Candace Owens. I don't know who I. Three of them are just terrible people, but you know, they're probably a trinity of terrible. Musk, Peterson, Candace.
Sleep at all for 25 days.
How is that possible? That
I'll tell you how it's possible. You lay in bed, frozen in something approximating terror for 8 hours.
He's terrified of the woke. Jordan Peterson was terrified of the new, you know, how he likes to call them the new Marxists. That was what was keeping him late up at night. I couldn't sleep for 25 days.
And then you get up.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, not
and
good.
This is from cider.
I feel like Joe Rogan is all of us. I'm listening to that and it doesn't pass.
Yeah, that laugh wasn't very, very convincing. It didn't come from the depth of her soul. It was very fake, like everything Candace. But yeah, as long as you're talking about Jordan Peterson, yeah, go.
The sniff test, I'm just going, wait, what, apple cider? You didn't sleep for how long? What are you talking about? He brings up Mikhaila, by the way, that's his daughter. We're going to get into it. That explanation is so ever. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not claiming to know how everybody's body reacts to apple cider.
You don't know anything, Candace, but since you're being critical of Jordan Peterson, I graciously concede. You know what you're talking about here.
But I just don't think that you wouldn't sleep for that long because of it.
Okay, so Mikhaila, well, I'll come to you in a moment, Candace. Mikhaila, how did you feel when you heard about that?
Well, I think it's funny because, like, we're connected online, Candace. So if she has an issue with my family, she could literally just message me. Her husband has my husband's phone number, you know.
You see, that's why I really, really detest the sort of things that people like Candace are doing, right? See, no matter how terrible my friend is, if I know someone personally, I'm not going to come online to bash them. I'm going to go straight up to them and may bash them to their faces, right? So I see it as a very strong character flaw for you to come online to bash someone that you have access to, that you could literally tell them what you're doing is off. I mean, adjust your behavior. But this is all business for Candace. She thrives on controversy. That's why she wouldn't pick up the phone to call Jordan Peterson or to call Mikhaila and say, yeah, what the hell is going on with your father? She's not going to do that. And it's crazy how these people all know each other and they tear each other apart online. It makes no sense whatsoever. It makes absolutely no sense. So no matter how terrible someone is, if you're close to that person, the first duty is to speak to them in private and try to make them to change their ways, not to come online and just say nonsense about them. So yeah, so even if I really don't like Jordan Peterson, the fact that Candace has access to him and could have said those things to him in private and she chose not to come online just shows how terrible the person she is.
Oh, it's just like a weird thing to do. I don't know where it came from. As for the apple cider reaction, I've gone over this so many times, but it's fair if Candace didn't know this. Although I don't know why you would make a 26-minute video without doing some research. It wasn't apple cider. It was a sodium metabisulfite allergy. And it was near anaphylaxis. And people don't sleep in that state. And when we went through that, which was horrible, it was horrible. We had a hard time with the medical system. We didn't know how to treat it. It took us like years to figure out what the allergy was. If you talk to a doctor and say you have that allergy, they go, what's that?
He was allergic to Marxism.
Like, it's not a common allergy, but it's not uncommon. You can Google it. And it just seems a little bit cruel to like pull that up. You also started that video by saying, you know, why is Jordan Peterson's audience, male audience, like diminishing? Let's get into it, which is just, it's manipulative, right? It's not true. So you have this giant audience, Candace, and you say these things as if they're true, which confuses people when they're not. So I don't know what to say about it. It's aggravating, and I think it's a mean girl high school tactic.
Yeah, because she never left high school. That's her MO. She's just a mean girl. She's just out there causing controversy. She never covers anything positive. She's always out there attacking, looking for one controversy over after the other. When these people are people that she has access to, and she could have said to them, yeah. But she needs to make money. She needs to make good money off these controversies. So she's going to keep doing these things. Weird.
Okay, Candace, you're a mean girl.
Again, accusing me of ad hominem attacks when I feel like she's engaging in them. Just to be clear and to contextualize this clip, Jordan Peterson was trending. I cover trends, I cover the news, and I think it's fair to cover topics when they come to the surface. He was essentially tweeting at—
Nope, not when you know the person. You don't have to cover something about someone that you know. You could go over to them and talk to them. That's what normal human beings do.
Prominent attacks that were written like sonnets. It was very bizarre, and people were going, what's going on with Dr. Jordan Peterson? And it became a Twitter trend. And so I covered it. Is there something wrong with covering?
He's crazy. We all know he's crazy. That's a fact. That's a given. But, you know, like I said, you know him. You could have spoken to him.
A trending topic? I certainly don't think there is, or I wouldn't have a
Do you
podcast.
think that if your husband was trending for something horrible, you're going to cover it because it's trending? You're going to, and you're not going to cover it from the perspective I'm trying to understand. You know, I'm trying to understand what this person is going through. You're going to cover it in a way that just totally tears the person apart. Is that what you're going to do? Except the person is Andrew Tate, of course, where you're going to defend them to the moon and back.
Or things to speak about regarding your father's audience. There were a lot of people who, after his addiction and feeling like he was not honest about his addiction, a lot of men who sort of switched off from Jordan Peterson. I mean, that is just a fact. I understand and respect that.
Why is it their business whatever happens in Jordan Peterson's personal life? I don't understand. Does he owe them his personal? Now I don't like the guy. I really don't like that guy. But Why is his personal life anybody's business? If he's saying something that is useful for young men, then take the message and leave his personal life alone. But
it is your father. And so you're naturally going to be defensive of him. And if it was a family member of mine, I would naturally be defensive of him. But to pretend like I plucked the topic out of pure air simply to be a mean girl and not because it was trending, literally saying that people are wondering what's going on with Jordan Peterson, I think that's you not being very genuine about why I was discussing it. And I think that I was tremendously respectful. I also paid him a huge compliment. I think his book and what it did for men worldwide at a time when men were being completely stomped on and masculinity was being questioned. And I said I would never remove that and would never take the credit away from him. But there have been some things that have just registered to the public as odd. I didn't make your father trend that day. So I think he's able to deal with a little bit of criticism.
You want to respond, Mikhaila?
Nah. So I think that's enough for this conversation. That's enough for these debates between Candace Owens. Let me go through some comments. Okay. We have Albert said he never said he detested H-1B. You lied. Oh, I think you're referring to Trump, right? Yeah, he did say he didn't like the H-1B visa program. He said that it wasn't good for workers, but he uses it anyway. Maybe if you go back to 2016, go back to the clip of Trump saying that in 2016, then you would see when he said that. And now he said, no, he's always loved it because Musk loves it. Sir Harry Obey said, America has enough homegrown talent. The low fertility rates among the low-skilled population. So America needs low-skilled immigrants. This is just a con to suppress American talent. Or it is simply capitalism at work. Cheap Indian labor for skilled jobs. Talented Americans for low-skilled jobs. Harry says Morgan is a grifter. Of course he is. Harry said you flip sides because you like someone that you don't like. Point. Oh, okay. You said you were being sarcastic. Oh, yeah, I was being sarcastic as well. I was being sarcastic. So Harry says the UK population needs the right to bear arms. They have knives. Let them use the knives. Harry, we gave up our right to bear arms in exchange that the police will protect the citizens. They have failed. Time to bring back the right to bear arms. Did the UK ever have the right to bear arms? Was that a UK thing or an American thing? Is it? I don't know. Harry said, God damn, Charles, you're so biased. Yes, I am. We are all biased, but I admit my bias. Most people don't admit their bias. Yeah, so. Said Charles is describing himself. I don't know what you mean by me describing myself. I never described myself. I described Candace Owens and Jordan Peterson. And anyway, that's the show. That's the conversation. That's the topic that I wanted to cover for this debate. I think it was an interesting one. Both people had some points here and there. I think I was more on the side of Mikhaila Peterson than I was with Candace Owens. Candace Owens was just speaking in generalities. And, so my verdict, Candace Owens, batshit crazy. Mikhaila Peterson, reasonable up to the point where she said she liked Elon Musk, after which she became batshit crazy as well. So guys, that's the show. Like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you in another live stream. It's bye for now.